programming here at Consensus, and thank you all for coming. This is the Town Square stage, and what we mean by Town Square is this is very much a kind of give and take format here. This isn't just about us standing on stage telling you what we think. We also want to hear what you think and really have a back and forth conversation. This is a debate. We want to sketch out what we think collectively is the future of this space, which is obviously very, very important. So I'm just going to introduce the panelists to begin with here. We have to my right, Jeffrey Adele. He is from MeWe. He will explain what that is. We have Ted Lasso. She is a Farcaster super user and one of the organizers of Farcon, which is an enormously successful recent conference in Los Angeles. We have Ian Levinas. He is Levinas, from Push Protocol. And we have Emmanuel Batsid from Sign. And then we have Ryan Lee at the end from CyberConnect. So they will introduce themselves. So Jeffrey, why don't you start us off and talk about your project, MeWe. What is that and what are you trying to do?
Sure, thank you. So it's great to have all these people standing around for Chris Dixon. We don't have our books out yet, but you can all come over here and listen to us too, actually. So MeWe is a social media platform, and we've taken a completely different approach to the way things are going to work. We're part of something called Project Liberty, if you've heard of that. It's set up by Frank McCourt, McCourt Global, which is the same group that is now trying to acquire TikTok. So what we are is a privacy-based social media platform. From the very beginning, we come from a Web 2 world. From the very beginning, we believed in privacy, free speech, respectful to your fellow human beings. We have over 20 million people on the platform, so we're the biggest thing you've never heard of. And we have about 900,000 people right now on chain, and we're in 200 countries, and we're made up of about 750,000 interest groups. That's the whole point of MeWe. Everything is around your interest group. And you think of us as if Austin, Texas is a chain, if you will. So we sit on top of a frequency parachain that sits on top of Polkadot, so we're in that ecosystem. And we're the visitor center at the beginning. You'll get your universal handle, you'll control and own your own social graph, and you'll keep your own data, which is great for you, Ted Lasso, not. So you'll be able to take that with you all over, and then even one day, hopefully, from our platform to Farcaster, and it's fully interoperable at some point in time. That's the project we're working on.
Okay, Ted Lasso, you are part of the Farcaster community. You are a super user. Just tell the audience about Farcaster. What exactly is that?
Farcaster is a sufficiently decentralized social network. What that looks like is that you own your own account, you own your own social graph, it's portable, you can take it with you. Farcaster is a product-led protocol development approach, meaning that there is a team building Warpcast, one of the apps on top of the protocol, and then there's Farcaster, the protocol generally, and there's also plenty of other apps being built on top of it. So Farhouse, which is like a Clubhouse equivalent. There's also Supercast, which is for super users of Farcaster and beyond. And so kind of my place in the ecosystem is that I'm a super user and a power user of everything. And also, I would say just like a big community advocate as well.
So Farcaster just raised $150 million. I think it was just last week, led by Paradigm. So it's really on the up and up. Ian, talk about yourself. Push Protocol, what is that?
Yeah, so Push Protocol, we're the communications protocol, not just for Web3, but for everyone. Seamless on-chain communications between wallets and protocols, between just about everything you can think of. We have over 500 integrations now. Our community is over 120,000 strong, and it's always growing. This has been quite a great week at Consensus with the team here and everyone involved. Just so many wonderful people building so many wonderful things. And yeah, we are prioritizing as well decentralized social through our grants program this year. So that's one of our key areas that we're attracting builders for.
Emmanuel, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Emmanuel. depending on who you are, where you usually hang out, I'm known for a lot of different things. I work on a bunch of different things, mostly around research, mostly around protocol explorations. Um, Most recently, I've been contributing to a protocol called Sign Protocol. It's a generalized attestation protocol, and the big idea is we want to allow more people to verify every piece of information they encounter on the web and in the real world. So pretty much create a very verifiable world out there. And aside from that, a lot of my focus in the decentralized social media spaces to figure out how we can move the next generation of social interactions in the digital space, but also in the physical space using the novel technologies we have. So yeah, I've been exploring protocols like the app protocol. Some of you may know Blue Sky, the activity pub. Some of you may know Mastodon, Farcaster. We know Wildcast. Urbit. Any Urbit fans over here? Let's go. Okay. Urbit is still like very low key for a lot of people. RIP Steemit. But yeah, I explore most of all these platforms. In Farcast, I built a decentralized community nodes function for a hackathon project. It's called the Testcaster. It was pretty much everything you see for community nodes on Twitter, you get to do that on Farcaster. We're still tweaking up a bit for something major, but yeah, that's exciting. And other than that, just community development, bringing people together. That's me.
Ben, you didn't mention MeWe.
MeWe.
So there you go. Come on board, please. Come on.
Awesome.
Ryan, CyberConnect, talk about yourself and that project briefly, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Brian. I'm one of the co-founders at Cyber, previously known as CyberConnect. Cyber is the Ethereum L2 for social, so we're prioritizing helping developers being successful on chain, especially for the social creator, socialfi kind of apps. The CyberConnect started in 2021. Now we just rebranded to Cyber as CyberConnect. Started in 2021, raised $25 million from Multicoin, Finance Lab, and a bunch of great investors. Been around building Web3 social for the last 3 years. We have CyberConnect, the social graph protocol, Cyber Wallet, one of the biggest account attraction wallet for developers to build on top. And we have a consumer app called Link3, which is a professional network, something like a Web3 LinkedIn. And yeah, we're here just to really help developers build social on chain.
Well, thank you all for joining us. It's great to be here. So obviously, social media today is dominated by some very large companies, some sort of billion-dollar gorillas out there. So the question we want to really get into in this panel is like, how do we move the needle from decentralized social media being a relatively niche activity to be something that is more mainstream? So Jeffrey, you have one approach to doing that. You actually don't really start from the Web3 world, you come from the Web2 world, and you're now trying to move people across. Let's talk about your approach to making that transition.
Thank you, Ben. So we took a completely different approach. We found that folks, at least at conferences like this, you deal with wallets, you hold tokens. That's the world you come from. Engineers, very tech-oriented. But the general population doesn't really understand this world. There's just a small fraction of what goes on. So we believed in meeting people where they are, in the groups they're in the locations they're in. And so as opposed to trying to just create an app on the blockchain and hope people will come, we literally took a platform, MeWe, with 20 million users and said, how can we make Web3 easy for them to use, easy for them to on-ramp and come on board? So that's been our approach. It's also the same approach that would take place, obviously, if Project Liberty is actualizes the deal with TikTok, because then you have far more users. We're trying to make this more of a mainstream opportunity, not so insular that sits in conferences like this. So again, we have, like I said, almost 900,000 people on platform. We have a QR code if you wanted to sign up. It's surprising, but again, we believe in meeting people in the Web 2 world and bringing them over to Web 3, but not making it difficult for them. For instance, a wallet to all of you is probably really simple. A wallet to a regular person in the Web 2 world that doesn't come to Austin or wherever, mainnet, is very confusing. So why make it like that? And I know Farcaster has a pretty easy wallet solution. I think it's pretty simple. But so we're going to make it so different that literally when you sign on, you get your social graph, you'll automatically have a wallet. automatically have tokens at some point in time, and you're in business, you're going. So again, we want to make it very simple and very frictionless as you move from Web 2 to Web 3. That's really our theory.
Okay. So you mentioned Project Liberty a couple of times. That's a group that's started by Frank McCourt. He's a billionaire real estate investor who's become interested in this new internet that we're building. How does MeWe fit into that project?
So when MeWe was created in 2016, 2017, in terms of going live commercially, we won a South by Southwest award. I could do a little promo, Best New Innovation. Anyway, the company for 4 years essentially battled it out with Facebook and Twitter, and we'll get into MySpace in a bit, but Facebook and Twitter, and we thought that that was a really difficult approach. We don't have the millions or billions of dollars to spend on marketing and advertising. So I read about Project Liberty and what was being created at that time, which was a parachain connected to Ethereum. That's what's happening at that point in time. But the overall concept of Project Liberty is the form of governance that has to exist, a form of a movement that has to invite people, and a technology that works. So Frank and I got together, Braxton as well, and we got together and thought about it and thought MeWe would be a great first app sitting in this world, because Frank and Project Liberty wanted to redefine the whole social web, and we're a part of that too. I mean, think about it. Your children, teens, young girls, the way their minds are being manipulated, I believe, by the Facebooks of the world, even the TikToks of the world, Instagrams. They serve your feed. They figure out ways to keep you on platform. They distract you. They create divisiveness politically and culturally. And so we're all about changing that paradigm. But to change it, you have to do it at scale. And Project Liberty is the creation of that scale. So that's the concept there. We got together 2.5 years ago with Frank. And so again, we're that gatekeeper or that first visitor center that sits in the town that you'll come through to move on to the Frequency platform and be part of Project Liberty.
So Ted, not NASA, just moving on from what Jeffrey was saying, I mean, why do we need decentralized social media? What is the point of it? I mean, a lot of people in the world out there are quite happy using Twitter and Facebook. Why do they need to come onto these new types of platforms?
I don't know if they know that they need to, and I don't know if they actually need to be honest with you. Like, people are like increasingly getting upset with like Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, but they continue to use them. And so I think for it to be compelling enough for people to move over to decentralized social, there needs to be like a net new experience. So like Facebook came out, it was like the first of its time. Everyone was like, okay, now I can connect with people online. It was like a brand new primitive. And then Instagram came. Instagram was different. It was photos based. Then you think about Snapchat. Snapchat was entirely different. And then even like the most recent ones with TikTok and Be Real, those are offering like a net new experience that everyone ends up adopting in their own product. But I think a lot of the decentralized social that we're seeing today are very similar products that already exist. And so when a user right now is faced with the decision of like, do I stay on Web 2 social or move to decentralized social, the product experience may not be compelling enough for them to do it yet because there's already a corollary. And so I think where decentralized social will unlock is by creating like net new experiences and new primitives. And so I think when Farcaster released Frames, that was like one glimpse at it, or looking at decentralized and permissionless channels, that could be another one. But I don't think until those happen will users realize that they need to make the change. And then in terms of like why it's net good for society, I think Chris Dixon, right back there signing books, writes about this at length in Read, Write, Own, of that right now with all of these kind of like centralized social media companies, they're the ones amassing all of the power, the influence, the money. And with decentralized social, that power is, I would say, like more democratically distributed. You can even see this already if, just use an example, if when Farcaster's channels go permissionless, you can think of like each channel as a community or as its own, let's say like micro app in which whoever's the channel owner is actually like the founder of a company, and they can start making revenue, and then they can integrate with other partners, and then users are also earning revenue in some way. And so if you think about that versus kind of like current Web 2, it's like, even if I'm part of a very active community on Instagram or on TikTok, the way that I participate is often mostly by consuming. And in kind of like the new decentralized social, it's like, okay, I'm not only consuming, but I'm contributing, I'm earning, I'm collaborating in a way that aligns all the incentives for everyone, and that like the entire pie is growing, not just kind of this slice for this like centralized entity as well. So, yeah.
And in terms of user adoption and getting more people to use Farcaster, what is the kind of roadmap for doing that? You mentioned frames as being very popular. What are the kind of new things that are coming down the pipe that are going to incentivize people to come on there?
That is a great question, and I think it's a really hard one to crack. I think if we knew how to easily onboard new people onto WarpCast or any of the other Farcaster apps, we would be doing it. I think it's still a puzzle that needs to be solved. I would say one of the best onboarding activities is finding a community. So I think, shout out to Nouns. Nouns kind of made a very opinionated decision to say, hey, we want to port everything over to WarpCast and to the Farcaster ecosystem. Let's kind of like dig in and start doing that. And because their community was there, they were able to have it be a really sticky experience. And even, I think, is doing 3 grants now to Farcaster native Nouns apps, which is really exciting. So I think there's 2 ways you can go about it. It's like, is it saturated already with like the crypto ecosystem? Is like everyone from crypto Twitter who would port over already ported over, and everyone else is kind of like, they just like, it's not compelling enough for them. So that's like one thing. Is like, okay, you can perhaps try and attract more crypto native communities, or once channels go permissionless, you can see how different interest-based, speaking about your interest base, is like different interest-based comes. So there's like a very active coffee channel. There's a very active like Los Angeles channel. There's a very active food channel with private chefs and professional chefs there as well. So you can start seeing, okay, maybe there's specific communities or interest-based that don't have a place on Reddit or on Twitter or elsewhere, where the Farcaster ecosystem is a really compelling way for them to find and connect with their community.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting that sort of IRL element to this project. It's not just like an online project. It's very much kind of these meetup communities that are building it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the mindset of like, when the first wave of social media platforms came out, they were really social networks, right? It was like, okay, how do you find and remain connected with people that you've already met in real life? Like Facebook was like, okay, who do you go to school with? And then, or who have you met abroad and stay connected with? And I think right now there are so many people, like maybe I'm just speaking for myself, I probably have just as many, if not more, online friends than I do in real life friends. And it's like, yeah, exactly. And so, right. So then now something that is like uniquely interesting to me is like, okay, then how, instead of going like IRL to URL, which was like what happened in the first wave of social, is like, now how do you go from URL to IRL and then back to URL in a way that is like just as compelling and sticky and fulfilling, that we don't necessarily like, it just doesn't, we don't have it right now, or at least I haven't found it yet.
That was even the tagline of Farcon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Ian, what's your philosophy of user adoption? How do we get more people into this space?
Well, again, it's not an easy question, but when you talk about user adoption, Ted made a lot of great points. First of all, UX is not where it needs to be for mass adoption, but that doesn't mean we're not in a good place. We're making a lot of steps forward, for example, from where we were back in 2018 or something like that. Specifically, like, for example, a lot of chat apps, social media apps really do just look like any chat or social media app once you open them up and once you start chatting, which they didn't before. But my philosophy is it's basically 2 or 3-fold. First, the UX needs to be as seamless as possible. It needs to be so easy that anyone on the street could open your app and use it. That's, of course, very hard to do, but it's true. Seamless is never perfectly done, but it's a living process, just like you talk about strategies for DAOs, strategies for communities being living processes that the community changes over time when they need to. So there's that living process of UX. And then the other major element of my philosophy is that education is paramount. I know that's been said over and over again, but what I mean more practically is not just technically related education, but more large-scale initiatives showing everyone why the core tenets of this space matters. A lot of people doing a lot of great things in that respect. Farrakhan is one of them. The list goes on and on and on. And I think even Consensus this year and Eat Denver this year, for 2 shout-outs, have done a great job at bringing everyone in. I've met college students at random side events here who are getting into crypto for the first time and saying that they feel very welcomed here. In fact, 2 or 3 of them that I met specifically said the Consensus staff and a lot of founders have just been the most open people they've ever met. So, you know, shout out to us, shout out to everyone here for being open and welcoming, and that would be my last point for now. We need to continue to be open and welcoming for the whole world to catch on.
Emmanuel, why don't you take that question as well? I mean, about user adoption. I mean, you look at this from not just your own project, but also more broadly. I mean, what are you seeing that really moves the needle in terms of getting more people into the space?
Yeah. And by the way, lots of great points from both of you, all of you. Exploring Urbit, exploring the Blue Sky ecosystem, exploring, you know, even Nostra and all these other like different social media platforms. Sorry, and seeing the success of Podcaster specifically, I've come down to this conclusion, and it's probably still a work in progress, but this is something I told you, Ryan, just a few moments ago. It comes down to 2 things: incentives and or attention. Okay, what's the incentive to get onto a new social media platform? If it's appealing enough, like if it exceeds the opportunity cost, whatever that may be, people are going to do that. People are going to run all the way, you know, through to be on Podcaster. If the attention is great, if I have the opportunity to blow up and become some, you know, some, I don't know who the latest social media celebrity is today, but if I have the opportunity to be that, yeah, Ted, perfect.
Right here.
Perfect. If I can get that from joining this new platform, I'm going to do that. So incentives and attention. If you put Taylor Swift on Nostra today, everyone is going to be on Nostra, and you're not going to have any explanation for it. Okay, if you were making $10,000 for simply sending out cast, people will be rushing over to Podcaster, and that happened. So I think at a high level, it really comes down to incentives and attention. But let's put that aside, and maybe I'll touch on something a little bit darker. I think what would really get more people to appreciate what we call decentralized social networking and media is, and there do I say, catastrophe. Okay, like right now, people are they're in a happy place. Okay, you scroll through your Twitter feed, you doom scroll on TikTok, you get your happy stuff. Okay, but it's only when things start hitting the fan do you start asking what's better. Okay, if your posts start getting censored, if you're getting shadow banned, you start asking where can I avoid this. You know, depending on what you're doing. If you're, you know, very politically, you know, exciting, you know, you might start getting censored here and there. If you're, you know, working in like in unconventional industries like cryptocurrencies, or even in the adult industry, you might start getting censored, and you will start asking, where can I go to get that done? Where can I go to avoid the censorship? So it's catastrophe in one small way, one big way. And I think that's probably the darker concept of what would bring more people in. Because education helps. That's still very like theoretical.
But we still need tipping points, like you're saying.
Exactly. Like people don't really feel it till they lose your followers. Till they lose an account they've been working on for decades. Think about the guy who managed At Music on Twitter. He's been managing that account forever, and Elon right away took that away from him. All right, so it's stuff like that that would really drive people to look for alternatives, and we have to do our best to build proper alternatives waiting for them. I think that's what everyone's been doing so well so far. Yeah.
So Ben, what about just people that are trying to change the world? I mean, certainly we're capitalists, but just trying to do good for the world. We have an election coming up in November. Not to get political, but it's a very divisive experience that's been going on in this country and in different countries around the world for a long time. So I think a motivator could also be a large event that doesn't wind up properly. it could be a catastrophe in that area that causes change, just like it did 1776 with the king and the Boston Tea Party and all those kinds of things. So I give human beings a little bit more credit than just being purely capitalistic. I do. I think, Ted, you probably want to do good for the world. I don't think just meeting you for 5 minutes, I don't think you're here like, how much are you going to pay me and what's my rev share or anything like that. You're about how to make change. I think people that are at this conference, people that are involved in decentralization, are all trying to change the world. And so part of Project Liberty, part of what we're trying to do at this point, look, when you have gray hair and you get to my age, yeah, money, okay, that matters. But now you're trying to change things, trying to make a difference, a legacy for the planet. And so I think that could help us as well in terms of adoption. That's just a thought.
No, it's very true. It's very true. Think about in our space, Impact DAOs, when they took off, Ukraine DAO and everything else that's so wonderful in that area. That comes down to exactly what you were saying, and even in our niche, why people cared about Ukraine DAO, because of what was happening there. It was easy to get behind the mission to help other people. It's just that simple sometimes. Charity is also a huge draw to our space because of everything that we change in that respect.
Ryan, I'm just interested in Elon Musk. I think Emmanuel mentioned him. When he took over Twitter, a lot of people, particularly in this community, said, to hell with that. I don't want anything to do with Elon. I want to be on a different platform where I can have, it's not censored. I own my own data. How much do you think that was a precipitating moment for this decentralized social media movement?
Yeah, I think it's definitely accelerated the decentralization, or like the people's eyeball towards decentralized social media. But back a couple of years ago, when the creators were having so much trouble monetizing on YouTube, on Twitch, back in 2017, there were incidents where creators went into YouTube headquarters and shot the employees over there just because they're getting kind of either deplatformed or like demonetized. We've seen this playing out multiple times with the centralized platforms risk. Two-folded. One is for developers, where developers are just getting ran off the platforms easily with the easy API changes or whatever policy changes. And for the creators, they're most likely only getting 1%, if not up to like the 20% of the revenue that they actually generate as revenue or like profit to themselves, and getting the rest taken away by digital platforms. And I happened to work at Instagram before, knowing that firsthand for developer and for the creators. And the long-term appeal for on-chain social, as all of you guys said really well, one is powering very different experiences. And that experience has to be very unique to what crypto enables, not just decentralization, but having everything on-chain gives not just only you own your own data, but also you can monetize so much easier. You have the monetization rules baked in smart contracts on changeable, immutable contracts where developers can trust they can build on the platform in the long run. Creators can trust they have their data sovereignty. They have their monetization channels always belong to themselves. Before Cyber Connect, we actually built another decentralized content platform targeting live stream streamers, and we onboarded PewDiePie, one of the largest streamers in the world, onboarded 30 million users over there. And the entire appeal to them is, one, we don't take away 70% of your revenue, and two, you are one of the owners of the platform instead of being owned by the platforms. And Cyber here, we want to first enable that a better, like, getting towards the long-term goal, you have to really dramatically lower the barriers on the user side, on the creator side, and on the developer side. I think all of us are building like better infra toolings for builders to build. I mean, there's Push, there's Sign, there's Parcasting. We have like, and also Project Liberty. Like, we're all building towards better UX that can get to a comparable state of traditional Web2 social media. And yeah, and for us, our entire focus is helping builders to be successful and for creators to be successful here on Cyber.
Awesome. So everyone in the audience here, hopefully you have some questions for the panelists here. We want to hear from you. Anyone want to speak up here?
it's a little bit of an inside joke, but I apologize for that. But I crowdfunded a question from Workcast, and the people want to know how many direct casts had finished replying to on her plane ride.
I currently have 264 unread, so I made a small, insignificant dent in them.
That was good.
So, Ted had posted yesterday that she had over 300 or so DMs, basically, that she was going to try to sit through on her plane ride to Austin, and she looks like she got through about 100 of them.
That's awesome.
Hey, Ryan, what makes CyberConnect so good for social?
Well, so with the Cyber L2, one, it's a technical level, it's the OP stack on top of EigenDA, much higher throughput than a lot of other L2, L1s. And we built a lot of tools around it. One big part of it is our focus on onboarding, which we built Cyber Wallet, one of the largest account abstraction wallet out there. And the L2 plus the wallet, we want to make sure every user can get on as easy as signing with your social, but also actually owning or signing with your Face ID, but actually owning those private keys under the hub, but you don't really need to touch it. Other than that, the entire focus for the chain or for our ecosystem is to support other social developers. Whereas if you build on other L1 or L2s, a lot of their focus is still on TBL. Like they will give out a lot of incentives to TBL, to meme coin, to more transaction or finance-based applications. Whereas on Cyber, we want to entirely help build and creators in that process, and we want to incentivize all the users participating in those apps, specifically social apps, content creator types, and not focusing on like trading or TBLs or whatever.
Awesome. Quick question just for everybody on the panel. The current access to Web3 is inhibited, as you guys are saying. Is there anything out there that would, bring a person like me, Mr. Miwi, as said, is not really a tech person? Sorry, Jeffrey. Jeffrey said that people that don't know Web3, they just they're coming slowly. Is there anything out there that would be able to set up social websites that I personally would own and would be my own social community that can do it quick, fast, and make it seamless for people right now?
Ben, you want me to start with that one? So I have the luxury, I was the founding chairman of MySpace 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And you didn't even mention MySpace. You said you started with Facebook. We're earlier than that. You're too young, I guess. All right, good. I'm glad you had a MySpace. And Sir Tim Berners, advisor of MeWe, he's the guy that created the World Wide Web. When this was all set up, it wasn't intended to be so complicated, and it wasn't intended to be so centralized in terms of how big tech controls and owns your data. So the whole concept with what we're doing is the groups on MeWe, you could literally use MeWe as your own social platform. You can sign up on it very easily. You can have the beginnings of your own social graph, who you follow and who follows you. And then you can be the admin to set up a group. It's really simple. Click, 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 done. Because it's a Web 2 app, so it works the way your brain's going to work. Now, we're NFTizing those groups. You don't even have to know what that means. It just means, part of what you said, Ted, is that now you will be the owner of your group. So as you build your group, we'll help you monetize your group. And all you do is just create content, deliver messaging, whatever it is that makes you happy and fulfills what you want to get out of a social platform. So that's how MeWe is set up, so that you are the content creator, you are the owner of your group, and in the future, you're going to be able to trade that group. It'll have a commercial value to it as well in a token world and in a fiat currency world.
Another question to Jeffrey from MeWe. So very cool that you're migrating users to PSNP. And I just have to know, so how exactly does that look like for users? And then also, what's next?
So we've gone in a bunch of different stages. At first, what we did was integrate into this frequency platform that sits on Polkadot. People are insulated from that. Second thing we've done now is when you sign up, all new users, that you click that QR code over there, you can go to the App Store or whatever, and when you sign up, you're going to get your own handle. Chris@web3.com, whatever it is. That's your access point for validation, really simple, a few clicks, into the frequency chain. Now you're on the chain. Now connected to that is your social graph. That's it. So that's how we integrate into frequency, and that's what's happening. Now, step one is that, like I said, you get your universal handle that'll operate across the frequency Polkadot ecosystem as other apps come in. You get your social graph. Then you're going to have this frictionless wallet. You're going to claim tokens very simply, and you're off to the races. That's the overall plan. Today, login, connection, social graph exists. Wallets, tokens are just a little bit out there.
That's another question.
Hey, here Martin from Argentina. First of all, thank you for all the work you're doing. I think that is a really important thing on the Web3 of the future. I have two questions. The first one is, how do you see the market, like from here to 5-10 years maybe? The second one is like, I understand this is decentralized social, but it's connected to socialfi also. So, like, are you afraid of like creating a market and everything that is social and connecting with others and all the really nice things, capitalized with all the money? Like, the only interest we have is our money. Are you afraid about that, or how are you managing that?
No, I'll just kick this off, and I'm sure we all have thoughts here, but I'm personally, and we're personally, and the people I know are personally not afraid of that. And one thing I'd say to that is we need to make better brands. And I don't just mean something on the surface. I mean a vision, a mission that people care about so much that it's a part of their identity, and it's just like they're going home when they join up with that brand. So branding is even more important in that case, and not just the surface. Like I said, the deeper branding, the way people get together, like what Ted was doing with BarCon this year. And yeah, anybody else?
I'll just try to answer the second one. I think it's exciting to see the financialization of everything, because it tends to create measurable elements of a lot of intangible things, a lot of things we can't really figure out how to assess. And the financialization of those things gives us a path towards that. So definitely not worried about that. I think we've already been doing that for like the past 15 years since crypto showed up in the way it is now. And I think what's important is we should figure out how to incentivize the right things. All right, you can do anything, but how can we incentivize more net positive activity? How can we incentivize more, public good activity? Align whatever business you're up to with like some public benefit. Yes, make your profits if you want to, but also make the world a better place, as Jeffrey would like to suggest. Yeah. And yeah, as for the future, I mean, anything can happen tomorrow. We just had like a meteor fly over and, solar flares and everything. So who knows? Yeah, but that's it.
I'm going to play devil's advocate and say that some of the socialfi and like the over financialization of at least social networks does concern me. So like if you look at Jonathan Haidt's new book about like the anxious generation and how social media has ultimately led to like this current state of teens and like young adults basically feeling more depressed and anxious than ever before, which is like very sad. And I think why a lot of people are kind of averse to social media generally. A lot of that has to do with like design decisions, like infinite scroll and an algorithm that prioritizes like more performative social metrics like likes and recasts and stuff that I just said recasts instead of but ultimately like this whole like there's a lot of design decisions that were made in Web 2 social media that has led to the outcome that we're seeing today. And so where I get worried and where I feel very strongly is I would prefer us to focus on decentralized social networks in which it actually, this portable and ownable social graph allows you to connect better with people versus, let's say, social finance, where you're taking a lot of these, let's say, more performance metrics about likes and engagement, and you're adding a kind of like a whole new metric of money on top of it. And I think we all know, like, money sometimes brings out like the ugliest of ugly in people. And we've seen this happen already. Like, even when I was playing crypto, the game, like, somebody, like, you know, would drag me because they saw that I got an airdrop for a certain amount, and like I became a villain because of the amount of money that I had received. And so to just take that one anecdote and then apply it at scale, you can see people becoming like more competitive or having more tension. And so I do think it's a very delicate balance that irks a lot of non-crypto people. Like, if you tell them like, oh, okay, like everyone can buy, and like it's exciting when you're making money, but when you start thinking about it, like, oh, is this sustainable? Like, do I have a real relationship with the people who are paying for these things? Like, it can give you, it like doesn't make you feel good, I guess, at the end of the day. And so I, for one, am a little worried about it. And I think, too, what Emmanuel said is like, okay, there are ways to make better design decisions around that. But again, like, there will be a group of people who like want the social fi, and that exists for them, and that's great. And I love that they can kind of experiment with all this. Is that for me? No, and that's okay. Like, not everything needs to be for everyone. So
I just want to add quickly, something you hinted at, which I think a lot of the other decentralized social media platforms have kind of missed, and I think only one has done a good job at achieving that, is Blue Sky, and the concept of algorithmic choice. Pretty much, like, right now, everything you see on social media is what the higher ups want you to see. Okay, what you see on Twitter, that's what Elon's algorithms want you to see. Whatever you see on the podcaster is what a certain preset algorithm wants you to see on Wobcast and Supercast and all of that. One interesting thing that Blue Sky added into their stack is the concept of algorithmic feeds, where you as a user get to really define what you see. You see what you want to see, okay? And that is a huge difference in your social experience, all right? When you're only seeing the things that you actually want to see, sure, you can add some other fluff to it, but importantly, you have control over that. I think that's the valuable thing we need to get right if we also want to get the financial aspects right as well. I haven't seen other projects do that. I've looked at Lens, I've looked at Urban, Podcaster, all these platforms, and everyone misses on that bit. And I think that's probably one of the most compelling aspects of the App Protocol project, or the Blue Sky project. Definitely recommend folks check it out. And yeah, just think about that. How can you make your feed much better? How can you have more control over your feed? Because that really defines what you do on social media in total. Yeah.
So Ben, again, visit MeWe.
Ben,
no ads, no BS. It's all about your friends. There's no algorithms. If the TikTok deal actually happens, it's being purchased with no algorithms. We don't care about that. It's all about the people. You're going to define what you want. It's like a town hall. You'll be participating in the governance of the platform itself. So MeWe gives you that opportunity. You're going to hit all of your friends that follow you, all your friends on the platform. It's not going to be interspersed with a suitcase ad or a Victoria's Secret thing or whatever it is, the animals or music. There's nothing like that. So I think we're contributing to making things better in this DeFi world. It'll be more defined by the user and less defined by a centralized government. Just a thought.
I mean, but that is a question, right? Find that balance between getting more participation in these networks and having that kind of UX, which can be quite manipulative sometimes, and having this new environment which is less stressful. And how do we strike a balance like that?
In a lot of cases, that comes down to if you're a social media app, if you're a protocol dedicated to communications or social media in some way, you need to decide from day one how dedicated you are long-term, a clear plan for that in terms of governance. And I don't just mean the technical and the weeds stuff. I mean, how much control will your community actually have at the end of the day? And at Push, we're DAOifying now, step by step, and it's all about everyone controlling their own communications. It's one aspect I see there.
Thanks. It's all been very interesting. I just wanted to go a bit deeper on this algorithmic choice because I don't know if you read Jack Dorsey's interview regarding him putting board at Blue Sky last week or 2 weeks ago. He mentioned that moderation was a big factor in Blue Sky and on his leading Blue Sky, and in that aspect, if we have more moderation tools and we're choosing the algorithm just to show us what we like, are we just going to increase the impact of the echo chamber that's going to be created by social media?
That's a good question. I'll first say I did not read that article on Pirate Wires. I kind of had a sense of what he was going to write about. And well, shout out to Jack Dorsey, but also bye-bye. But in terms of algorithmic choice, you get to control what you want to see, but then with moderation, we have concepts like labelers, which also help you control what you do not want to see. The fear of entering an echo chamber is real, and the key thing is what you choose to spend your time on, how many other people do the same? How many people can you relate to on that? If you care about Apple devices and you want to curate your feed for that, what kind of engagements can you drive around that? I built an Apple feed, an algorithmic feed, during the WWDC when the Vision Pro was unveiled. It was the highest used feed on all of Blue Sky for like a couple of hours. All right, and that was because a lot of people actually cared about Apple products and actually cared about the Apple Vision Pro at that time. So although it was my personal feed, everyone came. So I had less of an echo chamber at that point. So at the end, that's where the real social element kicks in. Who likes what you like as much as you do? Okay, that's how you get past that echo chamber. And then from there, moderation. The great thing about the App Protocol system is that you get to also have a good amount of customization around moderation. For example, podcasters go in decentralized channels, but moderation is very limited. At the end of the day, a lot of it still coming top down from vertical manufacturers. The most you can do with moderation is like, oh, if I like this post, it's going to show up over there. If I don't like it, it won't show up over there. And you can throw in bots and everything. That customization around moderation is very key. And I think Jack Dorsey didn't quite get that. I think he also still wanted some level of, authority around certain things. And App Protocol is really moving away from that. And I think they're making a lot of the right decisions compared to Urbit or even, what's this other platform? ActivityPub. Because Urbit was also on track. And I think they made some stumbles. And App Protocol is going the right direction. I will say for podcasts and Lens, you're already surrounded by the people you want to be surrounded by, crypto people for the most part, and the product is good. Wapcast as a product is great, and I guess that's what keeps people around. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't say we have an echo chamber of podcasting, do we? Ted?
I don't think so, but there is definitely like there's a joke that like everyone is just like a super optimistic builder, and so it's like one prototype. I will say on the decentralized or permissionless channels, has anyone here done a moderation role? Like, has anyone here been a moderator? Yeah. How thankless of a job is it? Yeah, it's like super thankless. It's not fun, and like even if you get paid, you're not like showing up every day to work being like, I love this. And so what the permissionless channels do is that it gives a lot of the moderation and curation to a third party. So it's not Merkle deciding. I think Merkle might have a few things. They say, okay, there's an owner and there's an owner of the channel, and then there could be a moderator. And so what I think is interesting is that it then allows the owner, which could be a smart contract, it could be a single account, it could be a variety of things, to then use whatever bots that they want to use to set their own algorithm. And so, for instance, I could say like, oh, I'm in a certain channel. I think that these 10 people are cultural curators, and I only want casts from them to be seen and to be replied to. So that's something that I could do. It's not specifically like topic. And I could also say like, oh, these 10 cultural curators like all disagree with each other pretty much all of the time. And so it wouldn't be an echo chamber, it would be a different place. And the way that I think about it is people want to spend time typically like where they feel good. Like you leave a conversation, you'll be like, oh, did I feel better or worse after that conversation? And I think if you build a thriving civilization, like whether on the protocol level or whether on the channel level, based on the algorithms, like people will go to where they have the best experience. And so being able to shift kind of like, let's say these moderation or curation dials up or down will actually allow for much more like many more experiences that then can be chosen in a very like supply and demand type of way.
You need a gradient there, just to echo that.
So it is really expensive to run a social media network. Like whether you're storing and serving petabytes of videos, whether you're allowing members to broadcast in real time, whether you're doing spam and abusive post blocking in real time, keeping up all your systems 24/7, all that costs a lot of money. If you had a purely peer-to-peer decentralized network, how would you expect to sustain that?
You want to go first? I can go first. So the fun thing about a lot of these decentralized social networks is that most of them will try to go peer-to-peer. They're not going to make it. All right. A lot of decentralized social network protocols come down to the federation model, where you have like some big actors and you have some smaller actors, and the big actors like take the bigger bites for the smaller guys. Right now, Farcaster kind of gets everyone to rally around a common set of rules, like, oh, you do not carry more than X number of bytes for a given message. You guys have to only accept users with like the payment and contract, the gateway contract, and everything. And so there's a lot of hard rules or constraints put in place for that. And that's like what you can get if you're trying to go peer-to-peer. Alternatively, in the like federation model, and you see this in like what Lens is trying to do, what Urbit has done in the past, and what Blue Sky is also trying to do, where you have like the big actors, and you just hope that they do their best, but you also have the tools to check and correct them if need be. So be it in moderation, labelers, all of that stuff, you're able to still survive with minimal cost. So for example, I run a PDS on the app protocol system. I run a Hubble as well for Farcaster, and the costs are all manageable, but that's also because on PDS, no one's using my PDS, and on Hubble, well, Farcaster does their best to make sure that we're not exceeding constraints. So it's really distribution, but then also keeping that federation model or keeping whatever topology like in a very set constraint of rules. Yeah.
Just really quick, you're right, it's super expensive to run a social platform. Running it on Web 2, we were paying $250,000 a month for AWS. Then you're paying for moderation services. That costs a fortune. So by moving, though, we've figured out ways to bring some things in-house to lower those kinds of costs, but they're still significant, so you have to have some revenue model. But by moving over into this Project Liberty group, into the frequency parachain, we've found ways to lower, in a decentralized manner, gas fees, latency, etc. So we are trying to lower those costs, but you're absolutely right. I'm an echo chamber to you right now of expense. Yes, we're trying to figure it out every day.
Well, just to add on that, I actually wanted to play the devil's advocate on Federation model, just because I think all the Federation model, especially Activity Pub, not too familiar with Farcast, how is that run, but it tends to really aggregate to like 1 or 2 providers eventually, and others are more passive, as you said, maybe a verifier or just being very, very passive. And all the discovery happens on like single or 2 or like a couple nodes instead of actually being decentralized at all. I think another approach that we are seeing is really just try to get everything on chain, especially the ones that's like you want to prevent double spending, and other stuff maybe you can get away with some IPFS or some sufficiently decentralized systems, but you want to really have the core either monetization or the core rules on chain, so that's really replicatable and yeah, it's easier to follow.
Hi, I'm Royce. I was going to ask a fun question, but now I'm going to get, I guess, more into the more real world.
That's the fun one. We want to hear the fun one.
No hold back.
Come on, we got 3 minutes.
Well, as someone that used to work for Sprinkler, which is a major SaaS platform that works with social media platforms, and this desire to create an app that brings, and that was where I was going to ask the fun question of, what are we going to do to like bring this community, right, or other communities to the app? But if we're going to continue to onboarding, you're going to continue to have attention from McDonald's, from Marlboro, from different kinds of companies that you aren't currently facing, and regulations and rules and bullying and legalities that dance interesting in the decentralized space, I think. And how does that scale with the regulations that have been put in, especially after the last election, with monitoring of posts?
I'll try to pick some bits out of it because that was but that definitely curious then. I think it initially starts with the entry point. How are these users getting on board? So what client interface are they using? Are they using Webcast or are they using Supercast? That's where the power begins, because they have some hold over what users get to see and do and all of that, and what brands get to do. Then you move on to the next step, which is like, what state or instance are they in? So with Podcaster, it's a single instance platform. With ActivityPub, you have different instances. Blue Sky is currently one instance. Lens is currently one instance. So the question becomes, how distributed are your instances, i.e. your experiences, to be able to not worry about that? Because tomorrow, the U.S. State Department wants it, they just have to knock on Merkel's doors or Blue Sky's doors or Avara's doors to have people do things differently. But here's a big thing about what we're building with decentralized social media as well. Not one person should have all that power. All right, there's a saying, the company is a future adversary. And this is where I think Nostra does a good job by saying, we just built a protocol. Go do what you want with it. So if McDonald's, ideally, if McDonald's wanted to tap into a user base, they shouldn't know who to reach out to, and they shouldn't have to. They should be able to just like find a good stack and tap into that. So there's a hands-off aspect to that, and that's something I think I want to address. Ideally, any good decentralized social network platform should not have a single point of failure. Yes, there's some high signal places to start and begin, but ideally it's like, open protocol, come do what you like. We have tools for moderation, tools for curation, have fun with that. Those are my thoughts on that, on just your curious.
All right, we've got to wrap this up. I'm sorry, we've only got 30 seconds left. I just wanted to thank the panelists, Jeffrey Adele from UI, we have Ted Lasso from Farcaster, we have Ian Vinez from Push Protocol, Emmanuel Batser from Sign and the project, and Ryan Lee from Cyber. And thank you all for participating in this town hall, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben.